Hi students, we are in week 1 of the legislative session as I record this. So what can you expect to hear about this year? Well, Governor Inslee laid out some of his priorities during the State of the State address on Tuesday, and we've also seen items from the Democratic Party leaders. We've also heard from the minority party leaders, the Republicans, on what they expect to be tackling this session. But overall of the things that are happening is a whole lot of uncertainty because recently 6 different initiatives to the legislature were submitted to the Secretary of State's office. Now, why do we care about these 6 different initiatives? They would unwind very significant legislation that the Democratic majority has passed over the last several years. So that includes the Climate Commitment Act. If, the legislature decides to ignore these things, they will go to the ballot in November. And that creates a risk of undoing this very significant funding that's been dedicated to programs like electrifying ferries and buses and several other pieces of legislation. If the initiatives in November create huge holes in the operating budget for the state, it could be a big, big problem. So that really puts a damper on anything new that legislators want to see happen this year. So we are going to dive into HB 2049, the ReWRAP Act. Now, this is a very long and slightly complicated bill because it has a lot of components. During the hearing, the committee staff person broke the bill down into 2 different parts. Part 1 is what creates the Producer Responsibility Organization. We also heard about requirements related to packaging, how to integrate with current waste management programs, and processes for establishing performance metrics. So Part 2 of the bill is related to the recyclable content that has to be incorporated into products that are then, able to be purchased by the public. So this works for plastic bags and some other household products like cosmetics packaging, for instance. This bill adds more types of products to that list that must have a certain amount of recyclable content included. So the one that really stood out to me, for instance, was around plant pots and trays. These are really, really hard to get rid of if you're a plant person, and it's really easy to accumulate. And I don't know what to do with all of my plant pots at home once I'm done with them. Okay, the last part of this part 2 is around labeling that goes on all of these products. Now, they are regulating, and the legislature will regularly regulate communication around certain things so that the everyday person understands what is and is not recyclable. So on the Capital Classroom Plus platform, we received a question from Maritime High School, thanks so much for participating, about what exactly is this EPR acronym everyone was using during the hearing. So EPR stands for Extended Producer Responsibility. This is a framework that is essentially what lays out our whole part 1 of the bill around the PRO program that the legislators want to set up to improve recyclable content. Now, an EPR framework basically makes manufacturers responsible for their products over the course of the product's lifespan. So it's not just about the selling of the product, it's also what happens when the product is no longer able to be used. So the important part of an EPR program, or what we're going to be calling our PRO program, is it lays out a very clear state agency that both receives all of the implementation planning and annual reporting and provides oversight. There are clear metrics and performance goals that this program is meant to achieve. We have clear definitions and roles laid out in who is responsible for what as a part of the program writ large. And we have a very clear funding mechanism to support all of this work. As I mentioned at the top, all of those initiatives that the legislature has to think about, the six biggies that I'm sure you will be seeing as we get closer to November elections. Now, they have dedicated programs that those funds are already going towards. But if they go away, that creates pressure on the state to backfill any costs that are no longer covered by those funding streams. So a brand new program that needs new funding in the operating budget is going to have an uphill battle with the budget writers. Now, an important thing to note about the bill is that it no longer includes the program related to the bottle returns. So that is not a separate thing that needs to be set up on its own. And there was actually testimony in opposition requesting that that be back in the bill rather than as a standalone. So a lot more to come on HB 2049, the ReWRAP Act. It is a really, meaty bill that we're covering this year, and I think it would be great if you paid attention to which organizations testified in support, pro, which organizations testified opposed, con, and who tries to sort of sneak through the middle with these very nuanced other positions. All right, students, we also heard a hearing on SB 5884. This is our environmental crimes bill from Senator Trudeau. It's an easy bill. It was an easy hearing. It was really sort of short and sweet, which was nice. There was no opposition, which is a good indicator that this bill could have a pretty simple path through the process. We will want to see what kind of fiscal note, so the cost, comes back at, but it's giving discretion to judges and courts, so it's not requiring them to do anything, and that doesn't really cost money from a legislative perspective. So we will wait and see when the bill is scheduled for executive session. That is the next step for it to continue in the process to ultimately become law. Thanks for watching the video, and if you have any questions, please reach out on the Capital Classroom Plus platform. See you next time.